You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Steven, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
Welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Hello everyone and welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. I am your host Katrina and with me is my husband Steven.
Hello.
We just finished episode 22 of Fullmetal Alchemist. A lot happened.
Yeah.
Exciting roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Steven, what did you think?
Exactly all that. So at the beginning of the episode, we see Hughes is trying to attempt a rescue party, but he also doesn't want Mustang to find out that things are going on. He's trying to be like, everybody, we can do this. We get them in, get them out, and no one will have to be the wiser that they're missing. And then we cut back to Scar fighting Gluttony, and he kind of, I want to say he gets his ass handed to him, but he gets knocked off.
He got a pretty good ass beaten.
Yeah, and he gets knocked into the hole in the floor, and then Gluttony spots the prison that big tall bastard came out of and started to panic. So I'm really curious about that guy now, since he seemed freaked out by it all. But then Lust and Al are facing off, and he asks about being a homunculi and even mentions what that is supposed to be. And before they get too deep into it, Gluttony shows up and grabs Al from behind. And I noticed, and I don't know if I've missed it before, but I noticed in this moment, he has a seal on his tongue.
Yes.
So it makes me, or I guess they're like Al in a way, sort of, in some essence.
I would kind of view it more as like a birthmark.
Oh, okay.
Like that shows that, you know, what they are.
Gotcha. So not necessarily a way to off them like you would them, but...
No.
Okay. I was curious, but I may have seen it before and I just didn't notice, but I noticed at that time because he was like, ah. And so Ed is figuring out what was going on there, that the military was using these stones. And obviously Tucker is whispering into his ear. That's what he does. That's how he speaks. He whispers.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are you saying, man? And you don't want to turn it up too loud because the next thing might be very loud, but he's very, very quiet. So Ed reluctantly decides that he's going to try to make the stone. Based on the information that he has and what he thinks he knows, he's going to try and create the stone. So he goes and examines a little bit more of the lab, and he opens a door and sees this room, but doesn't see what's inside the box in the room.
Yeah, he just thinks it's like a big vat of the red water.
Right. So he's like, oh, all right, well, guess I got everything I need. So we'll get started. Only to find out that the Brigadier General is hiding in there. And at that moment, you know, I started to think about it at the moment, you know, since they've been throwing out homunculi. And I was like, maybe he's a homunculi too. Maybe he's been brought back as a homunculi. But I find out that I was wrong. But I was close. And so he was hiding out in there, and we found out that what we thought was the red liquid was, in fact, prisoners. They are locked inside this room. And meanwhile, as Hughes and his crew are trying to get out to the prison, or to the lab, I guess, to save everybody, and I found this to be very suspicious too, is that King Bradley shows up out of the nowhere, and he's like, hey, I know what you're you're trying to do. Well, I'll go with you and make sure all this gets taken care of. And my first thought was, how did you even know about this?
I mean, he's King King Bradley. He knows everything.
Suspect. And there was another bit too, and maybe, I don't know if you want to dig too deep into it, but there was a comment that Lust made to, I think it was Gluttony, and she mentioned something about greed showing up, and they seemed a little panicky about it. Not panicky, just, I don't know, worried. It's like, we need to kind of get this moving before that person shows up and get going. And that, again, another one of those things where they just leave something hanging. They mention it and leave it hanging. Then with the prisoners, that one guy, was it Kimbo?
Kimbley.
Kimbley. I knew it was something like that. So Kimbley, we learn, as the prisoners are arguing with one another about what's going on, that Kimbley is an alchemist of sorts. And he does something to one of the prisoners, which then in turn he shoves him into the, I guess, it's supposed to be glass or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
It's got the red water in it, but yeah.
And he pushes him up against that, kind of sets off a reaction which causes an explosion, which blows the floor out, and they all land on top of it. Or at least in the room that he was in. So obviously he goes into a panic because he's like, holy shit, there were all these people. You were going to have me kill them. What the fuck? Which is a thing to do. And as he's starting to question everything, that's when Brigadier General shows up. And as he's questioning him, obviously Ed's got him pegged, knowing that he's a homunculi or not the real Brigadier General. And we find out it's Envy. Which I guess makes sense because we haven't seen that one lurking about. So why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Now Ed attempts to fight Envy, but gets kind of dispatched pretty quick.
Yeah, his arm finally went out.
Yeah, crapped out. Obviously, timing is everything, and it seems to be against Ed at every turn.
Yep.
And when Envy goes to, I guess, stand over Ed and I guess give him a few lashings, she makes a very interesting comment.
Well, he. Envy. Well, I'm almost positive he was a boy or is a boy or whatever. He
looks
is male.
Very female, but I guess is very male.
I feel like they would definitely be a they because they hop back and forth and are always, changing.
We'll use they. They. This was like long before pronouns like that came about, so we'll call them they.
But yes, when Envy was standing over top of Ed, they were, yelling at Edward and then made a comment
about the blood running through your veins.
That you have his blood running through your veins.
Which means they've got a bit of a beef. I'm assuming all of them do, not just Envy. But maybe it's just, I don't know where they all came from. So Envy at least has a beef with her father.
Yes.
And I'm curious about that. But again, it's a nugget they lay, and they don't say anything about it. They just leave it there. Ed doesn't even question it.
You find out.
I would hope so. Lust intervenes, but she is saying, you need to keep going. You need to do this because we pretty much brought you here to do this. And it really makes them wonder, because I'm kind of on Ed's side there. They had that moment. They decided they were going to do that, but you mean to telling me from everything that happened was leading up to them going there was all a plan? Their mom dying, them trying to bring back their mom, everything was a plan?
No.
So exactly. So I mean, but that's where Ed went with it, though. Like that's what he was saying in his head.
Like the question is more, when did it become their plan?
Sure. Okay. Because they did have this set in stone years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they were going to do. But yes, when did they get involved? And it had to be early because there was that moment. They even flashed back to that moment. What was it? The puppeteer?
Yep.
The guy who was doing all the puppeteering, bringing people back to life or pretending to.
Mm-hmm.
And she was off in the woods kind of watching everything. So it would have been in that moment, I felt like, that she kind of said, okay, well, maybe we can take it from here and lead them down this path. Because she saw them at that point. She was aware of them at that point. And that would, whether or not they kicked it off at that point, that could have been the seed planted in her head. Okay, I see what they're capable of. Why don't I see what I can do to manipulate this path? You know, seems to make sense to me, especially since they flash back to it.
Well, that's just the first time they had seen her.
Sure.
Remember, she was there in the very first, well, yeah, I think they showed her in the very first episode.
Yeah. Well, was that present day or flashback?
Well, that was more...
Because she was in the town.
Yeah, that was present day.
Who knows? She's been there for a long time. That's all we know. Al is dragged in by Gluttony. And now he's a bargaining chip, as Ed is saying, no, I'm not going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
They use him as leverage because Tucker mentions he is well aware of the homunculi and he wants to figure out how to do that so he can put Nina and create a homunculi Nina. And then he's going to take his memories of her and implant them into the homunculi. And then, of course, what does that do? Folds right back around to Al, thinking that everything that he was told by the butcher could very well be true because you can implant memories.
Yep.
Or at least that's what Tucker's saying can happen.
That was one of the things, like, I was so thrown off the first time watching it and everything. And it still throws me off. The fact that, you know, Tucker did what he did to his daughter. It was like he had no remorse for it. And then now he's literally spent God knows how many years since that incident literally trying to bring his little girl back. And even is like adamant about, you know, he doesn't want to change himself, nothing like that. He just wants his Nina back.
Right.
And it's like heartbreaking. But you're also like, fuck you.
Yeah, you
would have had her.
So I don't care whether because it's not gonna be the same.
No, it's not gonna be the same. It would, I mean, like Ed said, it won't be the real Nina.
Mm-hmm. And going back to his passion, and I really wish Al would hear it. Everything he's saying, if he did that, there would be that twinge of guilt in his voice, or something like that, where he's trying to figure out how to say something without being a hypocrite if he'd done the same thing. I wish Al would just kind of pick up on those things because he's speaking truth. That's all I'm saying. But Lust explains that they had been manipulating everybody, as we kind of said. It wasn't just them. There were numerous other people that they'd been manipulating, trying to get the stone made. So it was not just, Tucker was one of them, and I think they mentioned a few others.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they had several pawns.
Anybody who was willing to try and create the stone.
Anybody who wanted power, basically.
Right. So to encourage Ed further, since he doesn't want to do what they're asking, Lust kills Slicer by just kind of scraping off his little seal. I mean, barely does damage, just scrapes it enough, and then poof, he's dead.
Well, she sliced him before.
But still, just...
Yeah.
It wasn't like she broke it or busted it. She just pretty much gave it a good scrub, and boop, he was gone. And then she walks right over to Al, kicks his head off, reaches in, and she's like, "Tink, I can do this too," to him. So Ed feels like there is no choice. It's either that or his brother. And it's really fucked up because this is all because he wanted to help his brother. And now it's like life or death. So what is it going to take? So He repairs the ceiling. He prepares to create the stone. All the prisoners go into the circle, and he thinks and hesitates and thinks and hesitates. And Scar is luckily watching from a distance. And, he could have jumped in at any time, but I guess it wouldn't have.
Well,
it wouldn't have played out the way it did, because he watches to see if Ed's going to do
exactly
what he's going to do. And Ed finally just says, "I'm sorry, Al, I can't do it." And then that's when Scar intervenes and helps him get away. He's like, "Hey, get out of here. I'll take care of everything." Everyone starts to scatter. And if there was a moment to this that I missed, let me know. But all the jars in the room shatter, so all the liquid falls to the ground. And then as Ed is running to Al to get out, he just steps in the liquid. And then suddenly goes like God tier.
Yes.
That was it.
Well, if you remember, he created, the circle with his body to create alchemy, but never actually created the alchemy to make the Philosopher's Stone. He never released that energy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So stepping into it was kind of like amping up the energy he already had circling through his body.
Okay. So, yeah, he goes full Super Saiyan and starts like whipping shit out, and just everybody's freaking out going, "Holy shit, he's going to become a god. We've got to get out of here." And around that time, the guards and Hughes and all those people, they show up.
The military
shows up. They're trying to get inside. They encounter a few prisoners. Some prisoners are also trying to get out. And we see that, was it the tall guy again? Whose name I don't know yet, but don't tell me. Because I'm sure they're saving it for another moment. So, and he runs off with Kimberly.
Yes.
Yeah. So
as well as some others.
But there was like that moment where he just kind of looks at him, and they look at each other like, and then that's where they leave him. Then they get into the room as Ed is unleashing power, but Roz, brave she was, how she thought that was going to work, I don't know, but she just gets to him, puts her arms around him, calms him down, and his battery turns off.
Yeah.
And he's back to normal, and the next thing you know, Armstrong's exiting the building with both the brothers in tow. And that's that.
And the homunculi got away by impersonating soldiers.
Obviously, because that's what they do. They're a bunch of sneaky little sneaks. Can they all do that, I'm guessing?
No. Each of them have their own power.
Okay.
So Gluttony's power, obviously eating. And his mouth and everything, it kind of dissolves. So it's not so much like crunching stuff. Like that's when he bit Al, it literally dissolved the stuff away.
Yeah.
The metal. Lust is able to do her fingers, her big claw things. And Envy's the only one that can shapeshift in the sense of turning into other people.
Gotcha. But yeah, I felt like this should have been like the end of that arc, but I still feel like there are a lot of things still left unanswered. It just felt like it was the halfway point. So things kind of got dealt with. A lot of the big stuff got dealt with, but now there's the matter of, okay, well, now there's prisoners that are free. The lab is exposed. Who knows what happened to the homunculi, to Tucker, to all the other people down there, and is there another lab?
Not to mention, if the Fuhrer knows everything, how did nobody else know about this? Because he mentions that, he's heard rumors and just turned his blind eye to it.
Shit. He knows more than he's letting on. I'm not trusting this dude. He's in it for the power too. I'm not buying it.
I mean, he is King Bradley.
I know. So
you just gotta love him, though. I'm sorry. When he walked out of his little room in those adorable little flowered blue PJs, he's just utterly adorable.
I mean, I guess. I I can't agree. Anyway, so he's a jerk ass, and things are still happening. Brothers are kind of been defeated in a sense, because now they're back to square one.
Al's literally just a torso and a helmet. And Ed is like, his arm's all fucked up. He's got 2 massive gashes on his body. And he's drained.
Yeah. So I'm ready to just jump into, because I mean, we got to get to the next episode, because I don't know what's going on, and they keep giving us nuggets, and I want to feel satisfied, but they're only giving us like little appetizers.
Because it keeps you coming back for more, baby.
And that's fine. That's fair. And I don't see any reason why you would have filler episodes when you've got such good story.
Yeah.
You know, just don't worry about trying to fill time to fill episodes. Just tell the story. Just get on with it.
Well, how about we get on with it? Why don't you lead us out?
As usual, tell all your friends to listen to the show on their favorite podcasting app. You can leave reviews and 5 stars and all that jazz to help the show grow. Share it wherever you can. Listen to episodes early on patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions, and keep up with all things pencilpaperproductions.com/inspiredweeaboo. Links are in the show notes down below.
All right, my little weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.